Hello, one and all. Jasper here, joined once again with DJ Fella, and we're going to get started, of course, by talking about House of the Dragon, Episode 4, King of the Narrow Sea. So, anything in particular you want to start us off with?
Well, uh, as is tradition at this point, I'll start off with a little first impression action. So, right after watching the episode, I didn't have any hard feelings about it. It was mostly positive. There were a few points in the episode that really bugged me, but overall, I would probably say it's my favorite episode so far.
Really? So,
I think so.
I don't have anything particularly negative to say about it, but this episode just wasn't quite as entertaining or engaging for me. At least at like the very start, in a way. Like there's like select moments, but this episode for me just kind of went in one ear and out the other for the most part.
Yeah, so for me, I feel like episodes like 1 and 2 we're hitting all the political notes, and parts of episode 3. We're hitting all the political notes that I like in Game of Thrones. But this episode brought the drama.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was some character interactions that were pretty fucking spicy, and that's what I'm here for. I like that spicy character interaction.
And that's fair enough. And of course, this episode in and of itself has some of that political drama, especially at the end.
Yeah, it brought all the political drama that I like, well as like the character drama that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm. I think you like the character drama. Like I can enjoy it here and there, but for the most part, whenever I'm watching the character drama, I'm just like, "You're a fucking idiot! You're a fucking idiot! Stop!"
Yeah, there is elements of that. Like this episode, once again, I just can't help but see Matt Smith as a more intelligent and scheming guy. But I will say, I feel like on a rewatch of the show, like if I finish the show and then for some reason decide to go back and rewatch it, which I'll admit I don't like it enough right now to think I'm going to rewatch it. But if I did, I think I would be able to see Damon for who he is. Whereas right now, I feel like I keep seeing him as Matt Smith, and it's just not accurate to what his character really is.
Yeah, you're probably putting him much more as a scheming, intelligent individual than he actually is. Not to say that Daemon Targaryen isn't somewhat scheming and intelligent, but Matt Smith kind of, as far as you know him, kind of brings it up a notch.
I mean, at this point in the show, unless Damon is playing some 4D chess, he seems to have no schemes or plans whatsoever. He seems to just kind of be doing whatever he wants.
Yeah, I think there is some level of scheming and planning with him. We just haven't gotten a real deep dive into Daemon yet in one regard or another to really understand what his goals and plans are. It's kind of very mysterious at this point.
Yeah. Mysterious, stupid. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, because
Only the future can decide.
there are definitely some actions that take place specifically in Daemon where I'm questioning his motivations in one regard or another. But with that all laid out, I think it's safe to say we've put our general thoughts. We can now dive in and start going scene by scene.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, obviously, we start with Rhaenyra in the Riverlands with a line of quote-unquote potential suitors who all seem quite interested in becoming the husband and future king of Westeros.
So the very start of the opening scene is focused on the necklace that Daemon gave Rhaenyra.
Mm-hmm.
That's some pretty clear foreshadowing as to where this episode is going. She's got suitors lined up, and she's toying with her gift from Daemon.
Mm-hmm. Who knows? Maybe she's just fidgety.
She might just be fidgety.
But considering
But
where
she's
the episode goes, I doubt it. Yeah, but that's a good point that you bring up. Not... Nothing in my eyes, like, really ground shaking happens in this scene in one regard or another. A couple of like little interesting things I enjoy, like going back through the line of suitors and recognizing all their sigils and houses and whatnot. That's, as a book nerd and fanatic, that's just for me though.
So, my basic observations that I made, with the conversation with the old dude, the princess once again shows herself as being like not politically savvy at all. Mm-hmm. She's not willing to mince words in order to maintain relationships or anything like that.
At least pretend to be nice.
Yeah, which again in Game of Thrones at least, when people didn't play the game, it ended up biting them in the ass. So I'm still waiting to see how the princess's personality is either going to change, so she'll play the game more, or she won't change and see how it comes back together.
Mm-hmm. Now?
So then after the old man is a 2-year-old walks up.
Probably a little bit older, but definitely a child.
Which I gotta say, the actress, she makes a fantastic face when the kid walks up.
I do find it.
I
was going to say, I do find it funny though in that regard, because she, at this point, her character is 16, 17 years old.
I have no clue.
She's not a grown adult, so I do find it a little hypocritical but entertaining that she looks at this young lad walking up. It's like, oh, it's a fucking child.
But when you're 16, 17, I don't know how old he's supposed to be, but like a 12-year-old looks like a baby. And kind of is. Like, the amount of maturity that happens, like, that's all of puberty that we're talking about there.
True. But with that...
And so, like, the actress of the princess, she's been doing a fine job, I think. But that moment, I was like, oh, she really nailed it right there.
Yeah, I don't think I have really any faults with the actress. I just think that a lot of, I think it's the writing, and not to say that it's bad writing, but mm-hmm. I do have a lot of disdain for the character, but it's good disdain, you know?
Interesting.
Maybe you don't know.
I kind of felt like we were supposed to like the princess, and that my disdain for her was unintentional. But maybe that's me projecting onto the writers. Maybe I should just accept the characters for who they are.
I mean, it definitely depends. I do know that people are incredibly enjoying Rhaenyra and making all sorts of comparisons to her with Daenerys. That, I mean, to each their own. I never enjoyed Daenerys in the original series, and I'm not particularly fond of Rhaenyra in the show so far. But as far as their characters and whatnot, I still enjoy them, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they develop. In the case of Daenerys, not so much, but Rhaenyra has a chance.
Yeah.
But with that, we have this young Lord Blackwood making his own offer to wed Rhaenyra, and you have a Bracken heckling him the entire time, which results in their little skirmish. Now, I know in the first episode we talked about how, all these noblemen killing each other is this would start some shit. These two, this Blackwood and Bracken, are probably the only houses, maybe not the only, but a good choice where you could actually get away with them just killing each other like this.
Just because they're minor houses?
No, they're high houses. They're not Starks and Lannisters, but they're the ring below. But these two just have a history of constantly hating each other.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Which I gotta say, the heckler dude, kind of bitch made. Even from the start, the princess compliments him. She's like, I could learn to like him. But I'm like, really? He's just being obnoxious. No one likes a heckler. And then he just gets fucking killed like a bitch.
Yeah, right? Never bring a dagger to a sword fight.
Yeah. by a 2-year-old at that,
I know, embarrassing. You still had the reach advantage even with a dagger.
right?
Alright. So then we're on the boat because Rhaenyra was pretty done with all the trying to find a proper match in the Riverlands, it seems.
Yeah, Rhaenyra was done with being a princess, with being the heir to the throne, that kind of stuff.
Yep. And so they are sailing back to King's Landing, and Kristen Cole kind of makes it clear, like, the king's not going to like this.
Yeah. Kristen Cole is extremely sarcastic, and I like that. I like sarcasm.
Yeah.
So
I'm enjoying Kristen as well. And then, out of fucking nowhere, Daemon decides to be a dick to this particular ship for no good reason.
yeah. Which I'm like, would a dragon's wings flapping fucking rock a ship like that?
I don't know. Like, maybe not. I actually thought when I first watched it that, like, his tail might have whacked it or something. Or maybe his leg is hitting the sail.
I think it's just like he flapped his wings. And the princess just gets the worst concussion. She is crazy concussed after that.
Oh, she doesn't even know where she is. She doesn't know her own name.
Right? I was going to say, she probably doesn't even know her middle name anymore.
But after that dickery, we get Viserys kind of getting ready to receive his brother, getting his crown, getting Blackfire in his hands, heading up to the throne. Lots of nobility and Kingsguard swarming in. But this is all just the build-up for what's inevitably going to happen when Daemon walks through those doors with a crown.
And a sword.
Yeah, but I think it's mostly the crown. He always has a sword.
Well, yeah, but he has someone else at the throne.
No, that's the thing. It's not a sword, isn't it? It's the hammer.
Is it a hammer?
Yeah, it's a hammer. Because it's the hammer that the crab feeder used to, like, stake people to the posts.
I just thought it was... Oh, you're right. It's 100% hammer. I just assumed it was like a broken sword. Because why would you add a hammer to the throne?
Yeah, it wouldn't work that well.
No, because like only the head of the hammer is metal, presumably. So
the rest of it
wouldn't
just
add
kind of
much.
Yeah, very little. Plus, the crab feeder isn't exactly a person who I think is notable to like add it to the chair.
I mean, he caused some problems. He was a king for a little bit. The crab feeder.
Technically, at least he had the same influence Daemon has now.
Right.
So if I'm understanding the show correctly, though, it seems Daemon does rule the stepstones, pretty much. He chased the Triarchy, smashed them, and now that's it. The war's over, from how he seems to be explaining it.
Yeah. Which I feel like later on, there's some confusion about that sort of situation, but we can talk about that when we get to it.
Okay, yeah. And he offers his crown and the stepstones to Viserys, and Viserys asks who's holding it, as long with where's Lord Corlys.
Sec. We're gonna have to cut this part.
Sorry about that interruption. Now, where we were leaving off before we were so rudely interrupted, Viserys seems to ask where Corlys Velaryon is, along with who holds the stepstones. And from this whole kind of thing, when Daemon says that Corlys is off at Driftmark now, back home, and the things that hold the stepstones is a bunch of crabs and 2,000 dead Triarchy Corsairs. So, he's pretty much... The goal, as far as I'm aware, was to kind of remove the Triarchy from the stepstones. It seems like there's no intention for Westeros or even Daemon himself to hold it himself.
Yeah. Later in the episode, they talk about the sea snake doing some stuff in the stepstones. So I don't know if that was part of the sea snake's plan, if that was Corlys' plan, or if Daemon was planning on returning to the stepstones at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the Corlys' main goal was pretty much just to remove the Triarchy, so that way his trade vessels would be able to go past the stepstones undisturbed. But Damon, this seems like a strange decision for him to not put any effort into holding the stepstones. Especially with how much blood and whatnot he lost. I mean, Like, obviously the stepstones aren't exactly an amazing prize. They're, in the books, and I assume in the show as well, it's pretty much a lawless den of scum and villainy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's come to the conclusion, though, like, it's not worth it. Even if I'm king of shit, it's still shit.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Maybe just... I mean, I guess getting rid of the pirate king or whatever, the crab feeder, is kind of the main goal, so there's no reason to stay there anymore. But yeah, like, obviously there's some military capability in the area. Like, if you can keep a decent-sized army there, you can control that trade route. But I think later in the episode, it kind of sounds like Corley's has kind of moved into the area.
Okay. Well,
Continue.
I was going to say, we can kind of get more into detail as the information kind of keeps kind of flowing in, because I think that little bit might have kind of... Again, I was kind of watching this a little half off. This episode just didn't grab me. But, slipping on along, it seems after presenting the crown and whatnot, Viserys hugs his brother, and it seems like at this point all is forgiven.
Mm-hmm. And Daemon... obviously a changed man after going to war.
Of course. With so much, like, how much development he could have gone through, this is clearly a completely different Daemon now. Much more caring and nice.
Yeah, I mean, he ran a suicide mission. I think that it's fair to say that would change a man.
Mm-hmm. Change a normal man, maybe. With that... we then, I believe, jump over to a bit of a, not really a party or anything, but a small little get-together, drinking, having fun, and chatting. And we get to see...
yeah, kind of a welcoming party for Damon, my impression.
Yeah, and we get to see Varys just being the best. I actually, I really enjoyed this. Like, he's saying, like, nah. You were always Mother's favorite. And, like, it's general flattery. You can tell that he really does mean the things he's saying in regards to Daemon being the skilled warrior and the favorite of the mother.
Yeah, and I'm assuming he's a little drunk here, just by how he acts. But he is hilarious throughout this entire scene, and extremely based. I love Viserys in this scene.
Oh god, the looks he gives to Rhaenyra even before he says anything. You can just tell he's not in the mood for her right now.
It's so good.
I really enjoyed when Alicent, like, brought up the tapestries in the series. Like, he's like, oh, yeah, of course. David, you'd like to see the tapestries, right?
And he farts. He farts on her for even recommending it.
It seemed like a little bit of jading and poking. I wouldn't call it so much as farting.
No, he literally farts. Like,
you mean there's like
like if you listen to the scene, doesn't he fart? Maybe it's later in the scene that he farts. There's a point in the scene where he farts, and that was hilarious to me.
Okay, I'll leave that up to you. I don't recall any obvious farting noises.
There was 100% like a loud farting noise.
Alright. Rhaenyra says that she'd like to see them, and Viserys just straight up like, yeah, go fucking see them then.
Yeah, he's like, do it by yourself.
But then she just goes and talks about going to see the tapestries, but you'd say that shouldn't she walk a little bit further rather than like 2 feet and then sitting down at a bench?
Yeah, still in eyesight.
Alicent...
There's 100% a fart. I just went back and listened to it. He farts.
Okay. So Viserys literally farts on the queen then.
I mean, not on her, but that's the funny way to say it for sure.
So Alicent, still trying to be like the best friend ever, goes over and tries to console Rhaenyra a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Rhaenyra, though, still seems to be a little kind of like, and I don't know if she's like trying to insult Alicent at this point, or if she's just kind of like generally laying her thoughts out, but she specifically saying she doesn't want to be, locked up in a castle just constantly poping out children.
Uh-huh. Which, real quick, if we could go back.
Oh, sure.
As I was distracted by the fart, so I wasn't paying attention to my notes close enough. But as Rhaenyra walks away, they focus on Daemon kind of watching her leave. And this is an example of a scene where I feel like something about Matt Smith's face makes it seem like there's something more to it than there is. Like, he's watching her, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, he's scheming something. He's got some sort of plan. But I think in this case, he's just like, I should have sex with my niece.
I mean, I think so. He's a Targaryen, after all.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I feel like there's not as much depth to his thoughts as Matt Smith's face may think there is.
You think he's being a bit deeper than he actually is?
Yeah, like I keep thinking that he's got some grand plan, and he keeps just doing really stupid things.
Nah, definitely. I think especially with how the show has portrayed him, which is accurate to the books, he's very much just kind of a bold and reckless individual. Not exactly the most. He's no Littlefinger.
Yeah, which I've been trying to come to see him as that, but it's been a struggle for me.
Yeah, especially because Matt Smith, somewhat like, not, I wouldn't call it him typecasting, but there's definitely a lot of roles that he's done, and some of his most famous are more intelligent characters.
Which, I've never even watched Doctor Who, so I can't even blame it on that. Just something about Matt Smith's face.
Yeah, looks like God was kind of like molding his face, but kind of quit halfway and then put it in the oven.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. But Alicent kind of tells us what we already know, that Viserys is very frustrated with Rhaenyra and how she handled the whole tour, trying to find a possible husband or suitor. And Rhaenyra...
Which I thought it was hilarious when Rhaenyra asks, how angry is he? Like, you were just standing right next to him. Did you not see and feel how angry he was at you right then?
Man, there was a TV screen between me and Viserys, and I could feel the daggers.
Yeah, I was cowering behind my couch.
But we get a little bit of a time skip. Never live by a road, Dutch. Never live by a road. Anyways, we get
I didn't
a little...
hear that.
Oh, you did? Oh, God damn it. I'm going to just ignore them now. Anyways, we get a little bit of a time skip, and Daemon is...
So I'm not ready for the time skip.
Oh, there's...
Because I wanted to talk about Rhaenyra and Alicent. They reconcile in that scene.
It seems like a level of reconciliation.
Like, in my mind, basically they've been... I won't say at each other's throats, but they've had this awkward kind of relationship where Rhaenyra sort of feels betrayed by Alicent for like 4 years now, and then they just made up right there.
Yeah, it does feel...
Which I'm like, who knows how many times Alicent approached Rhaenyra to show her support and love during the 3 years that we didn't see, and then Rhaenyra just is like, "Oh, I missed you too." At the end, I don't know.
So yeah, because you're saying like, it's been so long, why haven't they made up? And now that they're making up, like, this is too quick and blunt. It's a weird mixture of the two.
Rhaenyra, like in the last episode, we're shown that Alicent is still very much on Rhaenyra's side and still very much trying to be nice to her at every opportunity. So what's different about this time that makes Rhaenyra accept her?
Maybe it's the confirmation from Viserys that Rhaenyra will be the heir, and he has no intention of replacing her. And so maybe she looks at Alicent a little less of a threat.
Maybe so. I could see that. The other thing is, I feel like this episode we start to see Rhaenyra act slightly more politically minded. Slightly.
I'd say she's
Emphasis on
forced
slightly.
to ask slightly more politically.
Yeah. And so I could see that being like her. Maybe she doesn't fully forgive Alicent, but she's now decided that forgiving her is just better for her overall.
Yeah. I mean, you got a point there. We do know that she is a fairly crafty liar when her back's up against the wall.
Which I'm proud of her for.
Anything else in particular you want to go through?
No, I'm ready to move on. Which you said there's a time skip, but the next scene is just her talking to Daemon
Yeah,
still at the party.
yeah, but everyone's gone. So I just kind of assumed like
Like a time skip of a few hours, not like a 3-year time skip.
No. Yeah. But
yeah, so time skip to Daemon and the princess.
yeah, she starts off really weird, speaking in High Valyrian, which that isn't weird. But she says, "You seem so content on Dragonstone." I mean, granted, that was the last place she saw him, but I was under the impression, that it's just weird because obviously he didn't exactly look content on Dragonstone.
Yeah, he was prepared to kill the Hand of the King and some of Kingsguard and stuff. So I wouldn't call that super content.
Yeah. Also, this guy on Dragonstone just waged a whole war to try and take the Stepstones. So clearly, this man is not at all content.
Yeah. Just kind of a throwaway line, really.
So we get a little back and forth between the two, and I feel like that most of this is kind of building up to the bigger scene that happens later in the episode.
Yeah, definitely some just trying to establish their relationship a little bit more firmly since they haven't been able to spend a lot of time together in the show so far.
Yeah, they really only had the first
Rhaenyra
episode.
calls him... Yeah, pretty much. And then the brief meeting on Dragonstone. Rhaenyra calls him more mature, again kind of hinting at character development he had while fighting the war.
Yeah. And of
And
course,
then Daemon says the princess has also matured, and that's bullshit. She's not. That's a lie.
well, maybe he's talking more in a physical aspect.
I mean, the actress looks the same to me, dog.
Yeah. And so here we have her complaining about having to marry someone, and Viserys says, "Join the club. We all have to have bullshit marriages for political stuff."
Mm-hmm. Which she brings up complaints about how marriage for a man is less binding than marriage for a woman, which is fair.
Yeah,
A
that's accurate.
king can be impregnating as many mistresses as he wants, and he can still impregnate his wife. Whereas if a queen gets impregnated by some dude, then she's stuck with that for 9 months.
Yeah, and not to mention, that the heir is like somewhat legitimate if it comes out of the right woman. Like, so it's like a guy can't fake an heir, but a girl can. So it's, a bit more expected for a woman to keep the legs crossed.
Yeah.
Because when a father has a bastard, it's a bastard, but it's harder to tell whenever it's a woman.
Right. And she brings up not wanting to she brings up not liking that her mother was basically not forced, but her mother had to have kids until it literally killed her.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the first times where I feel like we got insight into the princess's thought process that I really liked. Like, yes, that makes perfect sense. Like, she watched her mother go through like hell having kids, so of course she's not going to want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, her mother had Rhaenyra and then a bunch of stillborns and whatnot. So, and the final
Yeah,
one killed her. So, of course, it's perfectly sensible for to her to have this apprehension towards pregnancy at all.
yeah.
But yeah, I think definitely that delving into like getting a better understanding about her kind of thoughts on her mother in general, as well as what happened to her, as well as those events we see kind of affecting her own kind of thoughts, opinions, and decisions.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think just kind of generally talking about it is giving me more appreciation for this scene.
Yeah, which that's kind of what my point is with this episode. I feel like a lot of this episode has really well written scenes where the dialogue has a lot of character development going on, a lot of just insight into the characters, which this scene then proceeds to end on one of the stupidest lines in the episode, in my opinion. The princess says she wishes to live her life in solitude.
She's an edgy teenager. Remember, she wears all black. She was listening to one song on repeat while she was moping and crying. Like,
Yeah,
she's
but like none of her actions have ever made me think she wants to live life in solitude for a moment, and none of her actions in this episode make her seem like she wants to live her life in solitude. Like, what is she talking about?
I don't know. I think like, and maybe this is because of like the character's age, but I just take like it's kind of like when Daenerys did something really dumb in Game of Thrones. I just chalked that up to her being young and inexperienced and not knowing what the fuck she's doing. It's kind of the same thing. I feel like she's saying what she wants to say, but it's not at all the truth.
I guess. I guess I can accept that reason.
Yeah, she specifically says though, like, I have no desire to live in fear, only in solitude. But I mean, it depends on
Wait,
what your standards of solitude is. Because I don't think she's saying in particular that she wants to just lock herself in the Red Keep all by herself.
well, no. In my interpretation of it, in this scene, is when she says solitude. Basically, she's saying she doesn't want to get married,
Hmm.
but like almost in a she has no interest in men sort of way. Like that was kind of my impression. But later in the episode, like we're showing she clearly has interest in men,
Hmm.
and it seems like she'd be perfectly happy marrying the right man.
She wants the.
So I don't think she wants solitude at all.
Well, no, she wants the fun, but none of the responsibility.
Which is fair, but that has nothing to do with solitude.
Yeah, you can solitude. You can fuck in solitude.
No, you can't. It's called masturbation.
All right, but we can have that debate another day. Moving on along, we get and I've missed these so much. A small council meeting.
I don't mind the small council in this episode because the episode's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's my reasoning there.
All right. So they're saying, um, the Stepstones were supposed to be brought into Westeros, but it seems like there's no indication of that, and instead, they traded the crab feeder for the sea snake.
Which this is the line I was talking about where I'm like, it seems like Corlys has moved in on the Stepstones.
Something along those lines. But I feel like that's a like it's hard to like understand the whole kind of political aspect of this because there's not paragraphs and paragraphs going into the details of some of this stuff. But
Yeah, they don't give us many specifics. They just kind of talk about it in general terms.
yeah. But I think what they're pretty much saying isn't so much that Corlys is now kind of taking over the Stepstones and putting the same crap situation that the Crab Feeder was doing. I think this is just them offering warning that, Corlys is still an issue in one way or another, especially in regards to what seems to be one of his political actions to marry his daughter to the Sea Lord of Bravos.
Yeah. Which then, of course, immediately brings everyone's attention to it would be best for the princess to marry his son.
Yeah, Leonor Valerian. Though I'm a little curious, because they got this information from Otto's brother from Old Town. I am curious how he got a hold of this.
How do I get a hold of it?
Like Otto's brother, because Old Town is on the opposite side of the continent.
Is it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Where are the Stepstones?
So the Stepstones are like, I don't know if you can really picture the map of Westeros, but the Stepstones are...
I'm looking at a map of Westeros.
They're just west of Dorne.
Oh, yeah.
You see that little kind of cluster of islands?
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming that the map you're looking up, does it kind of show the different kingdoms in colors?
No.
Okay, never mind. But on the far west side, you'll see another island.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's the Arbor, that's House Redwine, but the closest, damn near the closest bit of land to it, in a bit of a groove in the land, that's Old Town.
God, this map is so bad quality, I can't read anything.
Well, don't worry. The point of the matter is opposite side.
So Dorne. So the Stepstones are off of Dorne, and then Old Town is where?
Old Town is on the western side.
I thought Old Town was in the Riverlands.
Nope.
Am I losing my mind?
Old Town is in the Reach. House Hightower serves the Tyrells.
Oh. Okay. Then yeah, you're right. That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I guess it's possible that maybe there was some rumors, from from the Stepstones or traders in general coming from Driftmark to Old Town that may have passed it along, but it seems a little odd that this would... Not that Otto would find out about this, but it was his brother who figured it out.
Yeah. You would think... Because you would think any... if traders are the ones spreading the rumor, traders going to King's Landing would get there way before traders going to Old Town could get to Old Town, and then give the information to Otto's brother, who could then send it to King's Landing. Yeah, kind of weird and roundabout.
Yeah. But it is this information that we see that the Sea Lord intends to wear Laena to the Bravosi son.
Mm-hmm.
Which is definitely somewhat concerning, because Bravos is the most powerful free city in Essos.
Yeah.
And obviously... Go ahead.
This seems like something that would, border on treason to me.
I mean, it definitely is a worrying situation, but it's not really something you can outright declare as treason. Hey, he's just marrying off his daughter to Bravos, probably to get some good trade deals. Ain't nothing treasonous about that.
Yeah, except for they were just almost literally at war with the Free Cities.
Yeah, at least...
Bravos is a part of the Free Cities, right?
Well, think of it this way. So, you know how Westeros is one kingdom, but it's 7 kingdoms?
Yes.
The Free Cities are... There are, I want to say there's, 9 Free Cities? I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head. But each city is independent.
Right.
So Bravos, even though they were at war with the Triarchy, which is three of the free cities, Bravos had nothing to do with the Triarchy. In fact, it's a very different culture and people.
Okay, that does change things.
Yeah. So yeah, he's not
that seems way less treasonous.
Yeah, far less treasonous. Like Bravos is an important city. It is the most powerful of the free cities, but it has no real connection to the Triarchy. I think Bravos would actually hate the Triarchy because Bravos outlawed slavery because it's a city founded by slaves, whereas I think most, if not all of the free cities, ironically, these free cities still practice slavery.
Oh, okay.
And 1 sec, let me count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, there are 9 free cities. But yeah,
Right, well,
so he's not...
That's all I had.
Yeah, so that's just a little bit of that whole situation. But either way, even if Bravos isn't a part of the Triarchy, it's still somewhat concerning to have House of Valerion have some sort of marriage pact with them.
Yeah.
Especially because them bitches got dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, we get the maids or whatever kind of lighting candles, walking through, and we hear Aegon, who refuses to shut the fuck up, or at least I think it's Aegon. It might be Aemond. I don't know which kid this is. Oh, no. It looks like a girl. It might be the daughter then. Anyways, won't shut the fuck up. And that's it.
And I feel like they're kind of juxtaposing the restlessness of the queen having to deal with the baby, the princess's freedom, being able to just go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Which they will continue to kind of juxtapose their different situations later in the episode.
Yeah, and I think that is an accurate statement. But with that, we'll have to get into that a bit more later. Rhaenyra heads into her room, taking off her earrings, when she happens to come across a bag on her table. And the bag, obviously, has a bit of a disguise for her and a note about a secret exit she can take in order to meet up with her uncle.
I'm going to ask you a question that's really going to test your knowledge.
Okay.
Do you know what language that note was written in?
I would assume... Hold on 1 second. Because do we get a good shot at it?
We get a really clear shot of it. If I remember correctly, I kind of think the language looked sort of like kanji.
All right, so she just opened it up. She's kind of reading it over. Then we kind of like move back, and she's looking, supposedly. Okay, yeah. Okay, so now we get it. So yeah, and it has a map and everything pointing. So, I mean, my best guess is High Valyrian.
That would have been my guess as well.
Like I can't.
My assumption, at least.
I can't say for certain, but it's really the only other language that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Daemon would write in Dothraki or Skrull or Bravosi.
Because the reason I ask is because the princess finds Daemon after taking the secret passage really quickly and easily. And it's not like he's waiting at the other end of the secret passage. Like, she has to walk through the whole castle. So I don't know. When I first was watching, I was like, how does she know where he was? But I went back and looked at the note, and there was writing on there. So I'm like, maybe that's instructions on where Daemon's going to be.
Yeah, because the secret passage at first takes her to Balerion's skull. And obviously you can get to Balerion's skull through other means. And so she's kind of like, not in secret passage. But yeah, I'm assuming that the letter does give more direct details.
Next question.
Okay.
Is King's Landing known to have hidden passages?
So, this is specifically in the Red Keep, and there is actually a lore justification for this. The third Targaryen king was Maegor the Cruel, and he was kind of the king in charge as the Red Keep was really being built and underway. And as the story goes, what I don't know if it's like one of those kind of like maybe mysterious stories or if it's actually factual. Which, assuming by this, it's probably factual. But he had a lot of builders create all these secret passages in the Red Keep. And then, once the final stone of the Red Keep was put, he celebrated by feasting all of these builders. And then he had them all slaughtered, so that way only he would know about these secret passages.
I feel like I remember hearing about that somewhere.
If you watch the histories and lores of Westeros, like you can find those online and whatnot, those go into detail about it. But something tells me you haven't.
I have not. So.
But
I just was curious because I don't remember any secret passages coming up in Game of Thrones.
So actually,
I can't swear that they didn't, but they might have.
So actually, if I remember the show correctly, I think Joffrey mentioned that there were some secret passages as well as Varys, and there is actually an instance, I believe they are used, when Jaime gets Tyrion out of jail. I think Tyrion uses some of these secret passages and whatnot.
Okay, because I wrote in my notes, like, I think I might remember some mention of it in Game of Thrones, but it's such a common trope that I can't swear I'm not mixing up fantasy shows. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah. So yeah, I do believe that they are indeed mentioned and used in the original series.
Which, this secret passage is very well secured. All you have to do is push on it, and it opens right up.
Well, to be fair, there's furniture in the way, so you gotta, like, move stuff.
You don't think that King's Landing has ever been redecorated?
I mean, how often do you go up to walls and push on them? Especially when they're made of stone.
I don't know, maybe someone leans on it.
That's why the bed is there.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like the furniture could have been moved at some point.
Anyways, we are in I believe the Street of Silk is what it's called. And pretty much...
Whoa. I had one more nitpick.
Oh, okay.
I'm on a nitpicking spree. The princess is wearing a beanie.
Yeah.
Which struck me as odd, so I Googled when beanies were invented. The beanies are a 20th century invention. So, I don't think the princess would be wearing a beanie.
I find it difficult to believe that this, like, the beanie in and of itself was invented recently. I feel like it's not...
I popped a goog.
And Lord knows if you find it online, then you know it's true.
Right, like, it's possible that there were examples of me, but it looked out of place to me. Maybe I'm crazy.
There's definitely somewhat similar hats from medieval times. Like, I don't know if you would specifically call them a beanie. I think that's like the technicality you're getting into.
Maybe so. I don't know. It looked odd to me. It looked awfully modern to me.
I'll do some research on it, and if I find anything, I'll pin it in the comments below. But back to the show. I
don't think it's that important.
It is to me, all right? But now we are on the Street of Silk, which is pretty much the Vegas Strip of the Red Keep. And we have all sorts of performers. I really like the guy who's like holding fire and then like breaks it apart, like, ooh, special. And then you just have people fucking right against the wall.
Yeah, a little fucking in the street.
Never hurt anyone.
You know, you want someone who's wild in the street and the lady in the sheets, you know?
Yeah. Something that I found kind of odd when, like, that drunk runs into Rhaenyra, says, fuck off, boy. Why is she so happy to be called boy?
I think it's just novel for her. She's like my disguise is working. Like, I'm up to some mischief, and he didn't even recognize that I was a girl, much less the princess.
Mm-hmm. Which, thank God the Targaryens here don't have purple eyes in the show, or it'd be easier to spot them out. But then again, that's eye color. But we get to see like some of the crazy stuff in the Street of Silk. A woman without eyes asking if she wants to see death, but not a whole lot to really delve into as we get into the next scene.
Yeah, just kind of generic, princess being amazed and bewildered by commoners sort of trope.
So King Viserys is being bathed, and Alicent is tired of this bitch not knowing how to rub a man off properly. So she takes over.
Right. And we see that Viserys is freaking covered in sores.
Yes.
This man must be stabbing himself every time he sits on that throne.
Maybe he's just extra fragile in his old age.
I mean, maybe. I mean, certainly. Like, skin gets thinner as you age. But still, like, goddamn, if the throne is poking this many holes in Viserys, how is it not kill a single king?
Well, there is apparently a bit of I don't know if it's a legend or a story or what the proper term is, but if the throne cuts you, then it's spurning you, and you are not a worthy king.
Oh.
So maybe
I would say that applies to Viserys pretty well.
Anyway.
I love him, but he's not the best king.
No, not at all. The more we get into this, the more I'm not exactly planning on raising him higher on my king ranking list. So
then...
Oh, go ahead.
Continue.
I'll let you describe this.
Oh. What were you describing?
I don't know. What were you describing?
I was moving on to the show.
I was too.
Okay. So there's a show, and the basic premise of the show is women suck, and we want a dude on the throne.
Yeah, and it's... Honestly, the show in and of itself isn't that fun. Like, this kind of reminds me of, like, when they kind of did something similar in the original Game of Thrones series. But at least that had, like, some humor. This just... I feel like even if you didn't support Rhaenyra's at all, like you're a sexist pig or who agrees with everything they're saying and whatnot, this still isn't a good show at all.
Yeah, and it's a little, like, kind of blatantly treason.
Yeah, like incredibly treason. I'm curious if such a public situation of treason would be allowed.
Yeah, like, these actors must have fucking balls of steel.
At least until the gold cloaks get a hold of them.
Right. Which, okay, never mind. We can talk about that later. So yeah, the show, I'm not convinced that it would actually be able to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But we get looks where Daemon is kind of glancing at the princess. He's clearly purposefully trying to upset her.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of trying to make her more emotional.
Yeah, or maybe kind of like just judging her reactions on what the small folk think.
Yeah, which the princess says their wants are of no consequence, which is possibly one of the stupidest politics-related lines the princess has uttered so far.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course they matter. They are, like, the people. When we're talking about the people you rule, that's them.
Mm-hmm.
Their wants are your entire reign is based on their thoughts.
Unless her alternative choice is to be Queen of the Ashes.
Yeah. I guess you could do the Daenerys route.
Yeah. So now, this next little bit confuses me. So she walks over and decides to, like, have a little snack, and then Daemon says, like, 4 coppers, we pay for stuff here. And it's like, yeah, okay. And then she throws the food and runs off. And then Daemon's like, don't worry, I'll take care of this. Like, he didn't just walk up with her?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
It's weird, for sure. Like, I get the princess wanting to get up to some mischief, kind of run around maybe without Daemon for a second. But, like, what is Daemon doing?
Yeah.
Like, the way he calls her out on it is kind of weird. Like, why would he automatically suddenly start acting like a stranger, like he knows she's gonna run for it?
Yeah, and why doesn't the guy holding the food say this? Like, he should be the
Yeah,
one, like, saying, hey, for coppers, we pay for things here, street rat. Scoundrel, take that!
this isn't Aladdin, although it is kind of similar to Aladdin at the moment.
I mean, Jasmine snuck out, did very similar things.
like I said, it's a trope.
Alright. But yeah, so this is really ridiculous. And also, the guy goes like, hey, stop! Like, she didn't steal anything, though. She threw it at you and threw it at him and ran off.
Didn't she take a bite of it?
She did. Okay. But, like, why does he then trust Damon to go get her? Like, who the fuck is this? Like, nah.
Yeah, he's wearing a hood.
Where's...
That's the universal sign of being sketchy.
Yeah, you call the gold cloaks. If somebody, like, stole my wallet and I saw them running off and then some random guy said, don't worry, I'll get them, I'm still calling the cops.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not his wallet. It's just 4 copper coins. So maybe he just doesn't think it's worth the effort.
Maybe. Either way, I think we're in agreement that the scene is off.
Yeah, it's a little bit odd.
All right.
We then get a scene where Alicent is going to bed, and this scene felt like a waste of time as well.
Yeah, because then we immediately cut to... Well, I think it's like you said, they're trying to, like, you know, compare and correlate between Rhaenyra and Alicent and what they're doing.
So, I guess.
So while Alicent is getting ready for bed, Rhaenyra is running through the streets.
Yeah, I guess I could see that parallel. It just seemed to me because, you know, later on we go back to Alicent, and I felt like that part works a lot better than just showing her blowing out a candle.
But with that, as she's running away, Damon also gets through all these guys with dildos on their heads. But inevitably...
Yeah, what's up with those guys?
I do not know. I can only assume that they're Septons. Possibly? It's hard to kind of make out, like, the robes that they're wearing because of how dark it is. But yeah, I can only assume that. But why would religious figures be out in a situation like this? One of them is wearing makeup. No, I think they're clowns. They're clowns, I think.
Are they clowns?
They have to be, because I think they're all wearing, like, fairly clowny makeup.
They do look a little clowny. I'll give you that.
Yeah, like the guy on the...
Some sort of entertainer,
yeah.
I would guess.
Yeah. Anyway, so she keeps on running and inevitably runs into a gold cloak, but not just any gold cloak.
Sir Harwin.
And do you recognize that name?
No.
That is Sir Harwin Strong, Breakbones.
Oh. I didn't realize he was a gold cloak.
He's actually a captain. Or a commander or something, like, you know. Daemon Targaryen... Well, is he still in charge of the gold cloaks? I don't know if he's really in charge of the gold cloaks right now. So maybe Harwin Strong took over.
That would be my question, is... What the fuck happened to the 2,000 gold cloaks that followed Daemon?
Came back to King's Landing? Maybe they went off to the war and were replaced with new gold cloaks?
I mean, that... I don't know. I would like to have received some sort of, you know, throwaway line about that or something. I don't know.
Well,
that's 2,000 soldiers that just have been... They basically shirked their duty to protect King's Landing, so they can't go unpunished for that, right?
Well, we're not quite sure how many he took. It could have been...
They said 2,000.
Did they say 2,000?
They said that when he was at Dragonstone, he had 2,000 gold cloaks with him.
They said an army of gold cloaks, but I don't think they gave us the exact number of 2,000.
I have 2,000 in my head. I feel like I remember them saying 2,000.
I think I specifically remember talking about, in like my videos of changes, that they don't mention 2,000.
But in the books, they mention 2000.
Well, that's the whole thing about the City Watch. There's always 2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really feel like they said 2000.
I'm going to have to ask for a quick little break. Sorry for the little cut right there, but getting back to the topic at hand. So, Harwin Strong recognized Rhaenyra, obviously because she says his name and he's able to get a good look at her, and lets her off the hook.
Yeah, he only lets her off the hook once he sees Daemon come around the corner.
I mean, it's probably a little bit of both.
In my mind, this scene kind of showed that the Gold Cloaks still have some loyalty to Daemon.
Oh, definitely.
Like he has the princess, he recognizes her. Daemon comes around the corner, and he's like, take care, boy.
You might
Gives
not be
Daemon a
as
little
lucky
nod.
next time. I have to say, though, it's interesting to give Harwin Strong that kind of, like, sign of loyalty to Daemon. I feel like maybe a more generic gold cloak might have been more appropriate.
You don't think Harwin Strong would be loyal to Daemon?
Not immensely. Because he would be a more newer addition, I'd assume. Because we see, when Daemon's like talking to the gold cloaks, I don't believe he's present, and we see Harwin later like at the hunting ground, so he's more of a recent addition, if I was to hazard a guess.
Oh. Then yeah, maybe. I mean, then in that case, I have no explanation for why he like gives Daemon a little nod and all that.
Well, I think you're right. I just think that it's an odd choice for him in particular. It's not an impossible one, but maybe they've changed some stuff in the history to make it sense.
Yeah, maybe so.
But with that, a maiden kind of walks, or a handmaid walks in to wake up Alicent and says that the king requests her. And Alicent pretty much says, like, it's rather late. And she's like, yeah, but king wants you, bitch.
Yeah, Alicent definitely not feeling it. She's like, I was asleep just now, dog.
Mm-hmm. And then we jump back to crazy flexible orgy.
Yeah. Crazy flexible orgy. That's an interesting way to describe it, but you're not wrong.
I never am.
I don't know about that, but in this case, you're not.
All right, so we see these, naked. What do you call those people who are like really flexible?
Contortionists.
Yeah, so we see some naked contortionists showing off and whatnot, and Daemon seems to have ditched his hood, showing off his Targaryen features. But then we're jumping back to Viserys fucking the queen.
Yeah, and since doing the dreaded starfish.
Yeah, and it's actually at that moment we can see that Viserys' body is much more kind of damaged and degraded than we probably thought. I mean, yeah, the guy's missing fingers, but without his shirt, it's like, oh man.
Yeah, dude's rotten.
Rotten to
like,
the core.
He's got rot growing on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Alicent, I don't know if you got this impression, but I think she's not into it.
Maybe it's just so good that she's just frozen in ecstasy.
Yeah. I have my doubts.
I think those doubts are well placed. Clearly, she's not too enjoyable of the situation. And then we come back, and this is going to be the annoying part as we just jump back and forth rapidly between these scenes. But Daemon and Rhaenyra are walking off, and then Daemon just straight up snatches off her hat, which is definitely very interesting because, the hair in the show is the most defining feature of the Targaryens.
Right. Which I think for Daemon, he's trying to, I don't know. I think he likes her hair. I think it gets him off. That's kind of my impression.
Yeah. I think there's some truth to that as well, but I think a part of him also wants word to get out about this situation.
Yeah, I could see that.
But here's the thing. We're coming up to the moment where I start, like, I'm just very curious as far as, like, the motivations of him. Because
Yeah.
because they're going through this wretched, wretched whorehouse. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
it's like, come on. Like, I know, you guys are trying to, like, enjoy, like, kind of the more lower ends of King's Landing, but there are higher end places, right?
I mean, I think a higher end place would have more privacy, which would go against him wanting to be seen.
Yeah, okay, I get it, but God, this is just filthy.
Yeah, it's definitely looking pretty gross.
And I'm not even talking about all these sinful acts. I'm just being like, good God. It looks dusty. I see cobweb spiders.
Yeah. Yeah, and people are just, fucking on every flat surface available.
Yeah, I feel like this episode might have like more sex and tits than like the entirety of Game of Thrones.
I think that's a bold statement.
Perhaps, but even like scenes in whorehouses, there wasn't this much sex and tits. So this is probably the most titillating episode for the A Song of Ice and Fire series yet.
I still think that's a bold statement. But continuing on, Damon and Rhaenyra start smooching.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut back to Alicent, Starfish.
Mm-hmm. No emotion.
And then she does give the king like a little look.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would call it emotion.
Fake smile.
And back to the princess and Damon.
As Damon
And they obviously are starting to like draw, a parallel between like having sex as a duty as the queen and having sex for pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Which obviously they're showing the pleasure in, I would say, a better light, although not that much better of a light because they are in a nasty whorehouse.
Yeah, and it's also uncle and niece.
Yeah, but I don't think that's relevant because it's Game of Thrones.
Yeah, but they're getting pretty damn close to sealing the deal.
Yeah.
When it seems like I'm not going to go so far as to say out of nowhere, but Damon suddenly does not seem interested.
So this is a part that they talk about in the after episode commentary, and the way they describe this scene doesn't make any more sense to me than just watching the scene alone. They said that they basically made it sound like Damon lost interest when the princess seemed excited because that made him feel less in control.
What?
Yeah. I'm like, but if she's excited, that gives you even more control, if
Yeah.
anything.
That makes no goddamn sense. I was going like the more generous route of like saying like, oh, maybe like, looking at his niece, he knows the kind of ramifications that could come from this and so has second thoughts and cuts it off there suddenly, but
I thought those ramifications were what he was after.
that's what makes this scene so confusing for me. Like I think I like, no offense to the writers, they may suck, but I like my interpretation better because it adds like a bit of confliction. He wants it to happen, but there's maybe some sort of like moral hindrance to it, especially considering this is a family member.
Yeah, I feel like to enjoy this show, you have to go full death of the author mode, where the author's intentions do not matter at all. Just the final product does.
Uh-huh.
But here in this scene, even the final product, I have no clue what Damon is supposed to be thinking here.
Yeah, I'm going to subscribe to my thought process until explained otherwise.
Because, I mean, knocking the princess up here would be best case scenario, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would be way easier to force a marriage with her if she's pregnant with his child.
Yes.
but he just doesn't, because reasons, I guess.
His niece. And we see Rhaenyra kind of like dress herself, run off to look for Daemon, and the little spy kid notices her and kind of heads off.
So are they supposed to be implying that they had been getting followed the whole time, or is this the first time someone takes notice of them?
I'd say first time someone takes notice.
That was my impression as well. This was the first time someone took notice.
Yeah. Because to be fair, like, when Daemon took the hat off her, they were like already kind of in the fuck place and people were busy. So when she kind of runs out, it's more likely for someone to have suddenly like realized what was going on.
Yeah.
And then we
get one more scene with Alicent lying in bed, and she's looking up at a mouse on top of the bed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I feel like there's got to be some sort of symbolism about like the bad sex or something.
Maybe it's like even no matter how kind of prestigious of the situation you're in, being a queen in a clean room, there's still some filth.
Maybe. I guess that's as good a justification as I can come up with.
All right.
That seemed a little odd to me.
All right. So Rhaenyra makes her return, and I kind of like the look Kristen gives her. Like, what? Weren't you already inside there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we get to what I think has kind of been considered one of the more controversial parts of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are some people who kind of interpreted it in the absolute worst light. There's some people who interpreted it in the most benevolent light. And, I think my interpretation is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I don't know where I would place my interpretation. I can't even really say how I feel about this scene entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Because, so the princess steals Cole's helmet, and then he, like, follows her around, and she's not going to let him have it. And then when she finally does let him have it, she kisses him.
Mm-hmm.
Without his permission.
Yes.
Non-consensual kissing.
Mm-hmm.
So, some might refer to it as sexual assault.
Oh, no, this is definitely sexual assault.
Yeah. And then, so, the princess continues to seduce him against his wishes. Like, he literally says, stop.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't. And basically what we have here is a person in a position of power and influence luring another person into their room by physical means. Then they kiss that person without consent, and when the person with the most to lose says they want to stop, the person in power leads them towards the bed and begins undressing them.
Indeed.
That is not a generous interpretation of it. That's not like a bad interpretation of it, I don't think. I think that is just describing what happens.
And I think that is an accurate description. I think the whole kind of crux of the situation is on Kristen Cole's and just kind of like the different levels of what's the word I'm looking for? Not condolences, agreement, I guess, or like agreeing to sex, because obviously he's against it at the start, and there is like the power imbalance. But I guess a lot of this would probably be depending on what the thoughts of Kristen Cole was, because there was always the moment where I felt like he could have left if he wanted to.
There's aspects of that, but here's where in my notes I draw the Harvey Weinstein comparison. All of the women who, or maybe not all, I don't know the details, but a lot of the women who ended up being basically raped by Harvey Weinstein, they could have not taken the part. They had the option to leave.
Hmm.
But Harvey Weinstein had influence and power over these women's livelihoods,
Hmm.
which I would say is pretty much the same thing as that the princess has. Obviously, the princess never threatens Cole or anything. It's not that malicious.
Hmm.
But I definitely feel like this scene is presented as like the princess being kind of mischievous, but it definitely, if the genders were reversed, I think it would have come across as way darker.
Oh yeah, immensely, and I think that is possibly giving into my bias as well. Along with just kind of the Kingsguard position, because the Kingsguard have an oath of
Mm-hmm.
chastity. So once you get that white cloth, no sex or bastards or kids at all, no marriage. So in a way, he's still taking. So it's like he's kind of fucked no matter what he does. But
Yeah,
having sex with her is the bigger fuck up.
for sure.
Because if
But
this gets out, he dies. Whereas if he says no, it's there's less that she can do. Because also, once you're being a member of the Kingsguard is kind of like being named onto the Supreme Court. It takes a lot of effort to remove someone from the Supreme Court, and it takes a lot of effort to remove someone from the Kingsguard.
uh-huh.
I honestly think, like, aside from death, like, obviously death is the big one, I think Barristan is, like, the only one that I can recall that was dismissed from the Kingsguard.
Yeah, but wasn't Barristan just kind of dismissed as like an order from the king?
Yeah.
It's not like there's a long judicial process that has to happen to get dismissed from the king's guard.
Oh, yeah, no, but you need it needs to happen by, like, the highest authority, which
Yeah.
the princess does not have. Now, I guess you could make
Yeah.
the argument that she very much could, like, twist the whole situation. Like, if Kristen Cole said no, would she go to Viserys and tell a lie or of defamation, which could result in Kristen Cole dying? Possibly.
Possibly. It's never implied that the princess has any intention of doing something like that, so I don't think we could use that as an argument for Cole's point of view.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think he would be thinking that.
Yeah. And I also...
My thing is, like, he has a really good relationship with the princess, which I think is beneficial for him as far as maybe he gets, the cushier job of protecting the princess as to opposed to maybe a shittier posting or something like that.
I mean, once you're a Kingsguard, you kind of made it, because you're really only going to be protecting royalty at that point.
Yeah, but it's not like all 7 Kingsguard are constantly following around the king.
It depends
Some
on...
of them have to be like standing in a hallway contemplating suicide, right?
I mean, it depends on the king. Some kings believed that only the Kingsguard's single job was to protect the king, and so all 7 would constantly keep watch over the king. Other kings have denoted Kingsguard members to protecting members of their family. Kristen Cole is a prime example. And there are instances of Kingsguards standing by to protect people of political importance, but not particularly of the royal family. There's an example that I can think of, obviously, is how there were members of the Kingsguard with Otto Hightower when he went to go see Daemon. Along with, in the original show, Mirren Trant was protecting Mace Tyrell when he was going to the Free Cities to talk to the Iron Bake in regards to the debt.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, if you like protecting the princess and the princess starts trying to have sex with you, then you might feel encouraged to do what she wants because you don't want to, have your position swapped out with someone else.
Yeah. I think the main thing, though, that makes this situation a bit less dark for me than how some people take it is I interpreted it as Kristen Cole, at the end of it, wanting to do it. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
I think there was some hesitation. I think there was some confliction. But I think at the end of the day, not the end of the day, but at the end of his decision, he wanted to have sex.
I I don't know that we can say that because like there's so many complications in this relationship
Hmm.
and so many reasons why the princess shouldn't have been doing what she was doing here that even if Cole is consenting by the end, he's clearly being manipulated throughout the process to get there.
Yeah.
So I agree that overall I don't think Kristen Cole was raped by the end, but the princess was definitely abusing her position to have sex with him.
Yeah. And to get like, and I'll like kind of defend Rhaenyra in this situation. It's entirely possible. Like, obviously that didn't come across her mind. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
she was thinking like, oh, I'm going to use my position of power in order to have Kristen Cole have sex with me. No, I think it was just a matter of her playful teasing, and like she thought of the situation more as equals, despite the power imbalance.
Yeah, my criticism of this scene isn't leveled at the characters really. It's again leveled at the writers.
Oh
Where I
God.
feel like when watching the scene, I felt like the writers were not thinking of this as being kind of a gross scene at all. Like the scene plays very straight and kind of romantic, and the sex scene is, like I don't know.
Do do the writers talk about it in like the
Um,
writers talk?
I don't remember.
Okay. I'm going to assume they don't.
Yeah, if they did, I must have been playing on my phone or something at that point.
All right. But yeah, so good we had a long discussion about that. um, and then while Kristen Cole is sheathing his sword into Rhaenyra, we see Otto up and about late at night, as he is apparently given the information of Rhaenyra's whereabouts. Now, I just want to say that this struck me as odd. Why is Otto Hightower waking up in the middle of the night to specifically come down and be told by this little boy? Like,
My only guess could be the guard says news from the what do they call it, the White Worm.
yeah, the White Worm,
So
even though this bitch ain't white.
yeah, so the White Worm is the Damon's prostitute, right?
Yeah.
So maybe at some point, which that's another one. They never showed her leave Damon, did they?
I think it was heavily implied at the end of the Dragonstone episode, where she was just
Like
like scolded him and then like that was it.
I understood she wasn't necessarily happy with their relationship at that point, but I didn't think she was completely abandoning him.
Yeah, man is still a prince after all.
Yeah, like he is still going to be your best route to
Not be a
what
whore.
was it? What was she? She was looking for liberation
Yeah,
from fear.
something
Like
along
Damon
those-
is still your best path to that.
I don't know. I think after that whole display by Daemon, I think there is reason, to, especially because he goes off and starts a war. There is concern as far as him being the best path to safety and liberation.
Yeah, maybe so. So she left, and apparently that boy is working for her.
Yeah, she's kind of becoming a little bit of a spy master and informant of King's Landing. But anyways,
And what I was gonna say on Otto coming down to talk to him is my only assumption could be that White Worm has, obviously made a good reputation, at least with Otto, as being a reliable source for valuable information.
mhm,
So maybe when someone from the White Worm comes, Otto makes a point to hear about it personally.
perhaps, and I think yeah, I think that's somewhat justifiable, especially when the information being told might be something that you want to keep close to your chest. So the fewer guards passing on the note, the better.
Yeah.
Right. So then we have her like nursing Daemon back to health because I guess he went off and got wasted after he tried to fuck his niece.
Mm-hmm. And Damon asks her, "Am I your prisoner?" And she responds as, "I was once yours," which, no. When was she his prisoner?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, maybe she kind of felt trapped in the whole situation, but she didn't ever come off as a prisoner, especially with that verbal thrashing she gave Damon. With
Well,
the
yeah, and apparently she was able to just leave after that. So I would say she was never anything even resembling a prisoner. She said herself that up until that point, she saw Damon as her best hope for liberation from fear. So I would say your liberator, probably not the person imprisoning you.
yeah. So a dumb line,
Hmm.
but this time she is his protector. Which the
Yeah.
fuck are you protecting him from?
Uh-huh.
And
From, I guess, street rats? I don't know.
scoundrels, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And Damon says he doesn't need protection from a common whore. She's not so common. And he's like, fine, a not so common whore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently she's not a whore anymore, though.
Right.
Because now
She's now, spy sort of thing.
she's got her own little watchers and whatnot throughout King's Landing. Damon's just so fucked up he can't really participate much in this conversation.
Yeah, Damon is fucking sloshed. Like, I didn't realize they were that fucked up last night.
Yeah, so I think that's about all we can really delve into this part. Because I think then it changes. Ah, right. Now we're at Otto, who's about to deliver the news he's learned to Viserys.
Yeah. And he's contemplating. He's thinking hard.
So now,
But
do you think that he's contemplating on whether or not he should tell the king? Or is he contemplating on, yeah, I'm definitely going to tell the king, but how best to handle the situation?
I think how best to handle the
Yeah.
situation.
I think, yeah, there's no way he was not going to tell the king this.
This news is way too juicy, way too useful for him to not tell the king.
Yeah.
But it is something that you have to be extremely careful
When
about
telling the king.
how you tell him. And I honestly think Otto does a pretty good job.
I mean, it's difficult to tell anyone that their daughter's a whore, let alone the king.
Whoa. She's not a whore. She had sex with one dude.
Well, yeah, but as far as Kristen knows, she went with Damon to a brothel house. Did I say Damon? I meant as far as Otto knows.
Yeah, but the rumor specifically was that she had sex with Damon.
Yeah, like only a whore has sex with their uncle.
Not in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, true enough.
And also, I'm sure that there are faithful women who have only had sex with one man in real life, and that man is also their uncle. I'm sure that's happened in real life as well.
Probably.
I'm just saying, having sex with one dude doesn't make you a whore.
Probably somewhere in Florida.
Seems kind of sexist and aggressive to say that. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. I'm sorry. I will try to rein in my sexism.
Yeah,
Right.
you should.
But anyways, Otto tries his best to break the news. The king seems to think that this is about the sea snake, so that kind of shows that he's thinking more along those lines. But Otto corrects him and says, nope, this is about Rhaenyra. And he really drags it out. He's like doing his best to show like, I really don't want to tell you this, when we know he does immensely.
Yeah.
This can be one of the things he uses to get his grandson on the throne and whatnot, but he lays it out and talks about how she was caught seen at a brothel with Damon, and Viserys immediately says that he doesn't buy this. And this is what's kind of interesting about the episode. Everyone is lying through their teeth and doing it incredibly well.
Yeah. A lot of lies go. Specifically from this scene onward.
Yeah.
Lies are thrown around like crazy.
Yeah, because Viserys clearly like disregards the behavior outright, like saying, "No way that happened. Your spy is wrong," or whatever.
Uh-huh.
When I think it's safe to say he does know it's true and believes it.
Yeah, that I was gonna say the same thing. Like he calls Otto a liar basically, but deep down he clearly believes Otto is telling the truth.
Yeah. But even with that, even in lies, there is some realm of truth because he also like challenges Otto, saying like, obviously, you're coming to this with me in order to get your son on the throne, to order to discredit Rhaenyra, in order for her to be disinherited.
Yeah.
And I think that's like his way of like cementing it in Otto's head that no one else is going to believe this either because of this what you hope to gain from it.
Right.
So I think that's his own little way of trying to convince, like, not convince per se, but steer Otto into keeping this information to himself.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
All right. Are there any particular lines that you want to kind of go over, or?
I thought there was one, but I can't remember what it is, and I didn't take notes on it. So.
It probably wasn't that big of a deal then.
Right. So Alicent was overhearing this conversation, and she sends someone to get Rhaenyra to meet with her in the Godswood.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, Alicent just doing the best she can to be, like, a decent friend to Rhaenyra.
Mm-hmm. Which actually, I guess going back to when Cole goes to get the princess, you can clearly see that, like, there's some regret and awkwardness in Cole, while the princess is, like, still kind of frisky.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's always a precarious situation when you fuck your boss, no matter how hot they may be.
Right. Actually, I think the hotter they are, the more risky it becomes.
I'd say the more risk of it happening.
That's also true.
Alright, so this is when Alicent pretty much tells Rhaenyra about the allegations that are being made to her, and we get a lovely scene of Rhaenyra lying through her teeth.
Oh, she lies her ass off, and I'm so proud of her. Thank you. Yes, lie.
This is the most politically savvy she's been in ever.
Yeah, which is another one. The actress, talking about this in the commentary, she was like, "Oh, she wasn't technically lying because Daemon didn't actually stick it in." But I'm like, no, she straight up says, "I swear on my mother that he never touched me," or something like that.
No, it's worse than that. She says, "I swear on my mother's memory, I am still a maiden," which is an outright lie.
That is also an outright
lie. Because Christian's sword was sheathed into her multiple times.
Yeah, she had sex no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't with Daemon. And then, but yeah, she's lying through her teeth the whole time. I don't know what the actress was talking about.
Yeah.
She's crazy.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. It's just, I think in regards to the actress, she's probably talking more along the lines of her telling the story of the situation with her and Damien, which is still a bullshit lie. There was not a single moment where Rhaenyra was like, I think we should go, and Daemon goes, nah, let's stick around. Not one. Not a single one.
No. Yeah. Every word out of the princess's mouth after she hears the accusation is a lie, and it is fantastic that she is finally doing something smart.
Yeah, and you see her like trying every like trick in the book to try and get off it. Like, can you believe this? Questioning my virtue is treason. This is probably my favorite scene that we've gotten from her.
Yeah, it was really good.
All right, jumping on ahead, unless there's anything particular you want to go over here again.
So, we had the reconciliation kind of scene between the two earlier in the episode.
Mhm.
And in this scene, I feel like Alicent is still doing the good friend act, right? But the princess during the scene is referring to her as like your highness and stuff like that, like very formally, which I think was interesting. Kind of shows how backed into a corner and uncomfortable the princess is in this scene.
Mm-hmm. And it's also kind of nice to see Allison give her a bit of a scolding for the dumb situation.
Yeah. Yeah, saying like, no matter what happened, you fucked up.
And I like this scene as well, where we get like hungover Damon walking into the court. The Kingsguard walk up and just manhandle him.
Yeah.
He delivers, and Matt Smith, he delivers the next line in like a very monotone way. Take your fucking hands off me. Like, the guy's clearly like practically half dead at this point.
Yeah, and puts up no resistance. Take your fucking hands off me. But just kind of lets him drag him along.
And just skip a little ahead, the Kingsguard pretty much like throw him at the foot of the throne, and Viserys is none too pleased about this whole situation.
Yeah, he's a little angry for sure. And he accuses Daemon. Daemon pretends not to know what he's talking about. He accuses Daemon again, and Daemon's like, yeah, I fucked the princess.
Yeah.
Like,
liar.
Does not try to lie at all.
Well, no, he is lying, though, because he didn't fuck the princess.
That's true. I guess it is kind of a lie, but it's closer to the truth than anything the princess said.
Right, this is the most truthful lie we've seen.
Yeah.
And so, a couple of like little things, no particular line. Like, it's a good moment, but there's no line that's strong. Oh, well, we probably should talk about, obviously, he makes the ploy to say, like, hey, now you should wed her to me. Because now that she's not a maiden, no lord is going to want her, I'd be the perfect fit. And so it's that motivation. Obviously, there is some, like, kind of drive, whether it be love motivation for Rhaenyra or power motivation for the throne, there is still that motivation. And it just puts, like, in contradiction to his decision to not go through with it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a scene where, like, you're like, wait, why the fuck did he leave her then? Like, if he was only interested in it for the throne, then it seems like the sex shouldn't matter. Like having sex with her is all that's important. Whether it happens the way he wants is inconsequential. And then if he did it because he likes the princess, then when she starts getting into it, you'd think that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Again, his motivation to leave there is baffling.
But yeah, apparently having sex with someone who's interested is a turnoff for him.
Yeah. Daemon is only interested in rape.
That's why he goes with whores and pays them. Specifically the ones not interested.
Yeah.
Alright.
And so, overall, I would say this scene, like, Viserys has been shown to not be very good at playing the Game of Thrones. Daemon has been shown to have no interest in even attempting to play the Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's like they're playing Battleship. Like, Viserys is trying to play Battleship. He'll sink a couple of ships, but not get very far. Daemon just grabs a baseball bat and smacks the battleship.
Yeah, he's just doing the most direct path and not trying to hide what he's doing at all.
Yeah.
From anyone.
But given their positions, it makes sense, because Daemon's position is the only position one could really have for these actions to, like, work. Had he not been a prince, the man's head would be on a pike at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Daemon's lack of understanding that there's supposed to be a game being played here is perfectly encapsulated in the line, "You are the dragon, your word is truth and law." Like, no. Just because you're king doesn't mean you can just do whatever you want. It's never been like that. It never will be like that. You're delusional, Daemon.
Because even if you do have dragons, you still have to be somewhat politically inclined.
Yeah, you still need political support.
Because dragons are...
Dorne is proof of that.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't get the support there, then the people will just fight you to the end.
Mm-hmm. And then we get the scene with Alicent and Viserys kind of talking about the situation. And Alicent shows how stupid she is for believing Rhaenyra.
Yeah. Yeah, Alicent is... I mean, at least she's consistent.
Yeah.
She supports Rhaenyra fucking no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Rhaenyra's a complete bitch to her for like 4 straight years, I think. Alicent's still supporting it.
Yeah, not a whole lot to immediately delve into. Nothing like jumping to my mind as far as something that we can really dig in and take apart. But it's just like Alicent saying like we should trust Rhaenyra because Daemon is a liar. Fair enough.
Mm-hmm. And again, just like with Otto, the king knows that Daemon was pretty much telling the truth.
Yeah. Or at the very least, Daemon's lie is the most truthful.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely seems to take Daemon's word over the princess.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But then, we then eventually get Rhaenyra being walked up and presented to Viserys. And, goddamn, we see that fucking dagger.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And we get some more cringe-ass prophecies.
Do we have to talk about this, or can we skip it?
We have to talk about it because it's probably the worst part of the episode.
God, just... this is my biggest wish for future seasons. They just cut everything in reference to the original series.
And the thing is, it's such blatant fan service. In, like... and no fans want it. Like, this prophecy has nothing to do with anything that's going to happen in this show. It is never going to become relevant. If you were watching this show without having seen anything from Game of Thrones, when you keep seeing this prophecy brought up, you're going to think it's going to play some big part. You're going to think, like, this is going to be extremely plot relevant because they keep bringing up this prophecy. But it's fucking not.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fan service that no fan wants.
Credit, very, very, very little credit, but I will say that in, like, the books, there is, like, somewhat lores and theory that give some credence to this in one way, such as the Targaryens being dreamers, and maybe there being at points where the Targaryens were aware of what's kind of happening in the future with the prince that was promised. But, I mean, everything you said was pretty much true, that especially with knowing what this all ends up becoming, as well as people who haven't watched the series aren't going to know what the fuck this is, so this is building up something that, again, is not going to happen for another 100 or so, 170 years, give or take a few decades.
Yeah, it's just, it's so stupid. It's like I said, like fan service that no fan wants. Why are you doing this?
To be fair, this is the first season, though even then, they should be smart enough to know that nobody wanted this, so... fingers crossed that when the second season inevitably comes out, because it will, that they cut all this shit. Just forget all about that prophecy.
Yeah. We can only hope.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they start talking about the show that we're actually watching again. Okay. Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
And Viserys proceeds to be extremely based.
Yeah, because Rhaenyra pretty much says, like, you've only heard the lies, you never asked me what actually happened. He's like, it doesn't fucking matter. It matters what everyone else thinks happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, again, like, I feel like Viserys is showing, like, again, way more political savvy than he has in the rest of the show in this episode.
Yeah. And, again, he's got, like... this is probably some of my 2 favorite lines in the show, where, you know, Rhaenyra talks about, you know, if I was born a man, I could fuck whoever I wanted and have all sorts of bastards and no one would have any issues. To which she's like, yeah, but you're not. You're a woman, and there are differences because of that.
Yeah, life's not fair. Get over it.
Yeah. And she says, like, oh, are you going to strip me of titles and name Aegon as my heir? And he said, I would. And I was just like, good, do it! Which I know he's not. I've read the books.
Yeah.
But this is probably something that I'm a little more skeptical of, but it is mine to hold the realm together, not sow it with further division, which I'm saying, by keeping her around, like, yeah, whatever arguments you want to make about how progressive Viserys is, the fact of the matter is, the world he lives in is not very progressive, and the simple fact of keeping her as the heir is what is having so much division.
Yeah. Like he says later, when she's like, oh, you marry me off just to get rid of your political
Headaches.
was it political headaches? And he's like, you are my political headache. And it's like, exactly, and that's why she should not be the heir to the throne.
Mm-hmm. She's still a young girl, so maybe once they have the older actor kind of fill in the role, they'll probably have a bit more kind of moments for her, being a little more politically savvy. But
we do get some more political savviness from her later in this scene.
right, as she kind of uses the whole situation to get rid of Otto Hightower.
Yeah. Which, again, I would say that this felt kind of completely out of character for her.
I don't
Like
think
it was so she was so good at being manipulative and subtle and getting what she wanted, which she has not been good at until now.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think she's being subtle at all. She pretty much straight up says, Otto Hightower is trying to destroy us, destroy me. You have to get rid of him.
You're right. Maybe subtle is not the right word.
Yeah. But she's clearly using the whole situation to her advantage. And to be fair, this is probably the smartest thing she's done.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, the two smart moments she's had in the series so far. Lying to Alicent and this.
Mm-hmm. Getting rid of Otto Hightower, who is obviously one of her biggest rivals and enemies at this point.
Yeah.
All right. But then, speaking of, we get to the scene where it's a nice scene, but it's pretty much the longest "you're fired" speech ever.
Whoa. You skipped over the part where basically the king says you're going to marry Corlys's, or maybe I'm out of order, but she basically agrees to marry Corlys's son.
Yeah.
Did we already talk about that?
I mean, not really, but I don't know if there's a whole lot we want to go into. I mean, it's a good match, all things considered. It was one that was kind of hinted at and foreshadowed for a while.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to happen.
Oh, really?
Obviously, you know whether it happens or not, but I don't think it's going to happen.
You're smarter than I thought.
Yeah, it seems like that would fix things up way too cleanly. So, yeah, I don't think that shit's happening in a million years.
Oh, come on. I mean, just because the books had a civil war doesn't mean that the show has to.
Yeah, the show could... It's got a few differences already. They could take it in a completely different direction.
I mean, there might be some issues with Leonor. I mean, he does... Nah, I'll let you find out later.
So yeah, now on to the scene. The firing of Otto.
Yeah. It's like a kind of like a mixture of a lot of things. It's a bit of a lore dump, as well as, it's a well-handled kind of lore dump to kind of add a credence and gravitas for the dismissal of Otto Hightower.
Yeah. Did you get the impression that Viserys was, like, kind of accusing Otto of assassinating his father?
Now that I'm watching the scene now, I can see the inclinations.
Yeah, like he starts by being like 5 short days. And then he also talks about which the 5 short days to me kind of implies like possibly poison was involved. Like he went from perfectly healthy to dead in 5 short days. Like that's kind of unnatural.
Mm-hmm.
And then he talks about how much Otto had to benefit from that death.
Yeah, becoming just another person at court into the second most powerful individual in the realm.
Yeah. But I feel like I mean I don't know. He definitely doesn't lean into that as like his reason for removing Otto. He just kind of brings it up.
I will say though, obviously with how kind of more broad the books are, we don't really delve into the passing of Viserys' father that much, but it is true that it was like a burst belly. I will say though, like some of the more ardent fans have kind of come up with this kind of grand maester conspiracy that because the maesters in general are not too fond of Targaryens or dragons, they're one of the main reasons for some untimely deaths, as well as the inevitable extinction of the dragons. So it's possible that the Maesters might have had something to do with Viserys' father's death.
That would make a lot of sense as well.
Did you hear all that?
I did.
Fuck. Anyways, let's keep going.
You got here something on the road?
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't.
Never mind then. I hear it through my headphones, so I like positive the mic is picking it up. But if it's not, then we're golden.
Yeah, your voice did get a little robot-y, but that was about it.
Okay. But a part of me like kind of like watching this scene again. It seems like Otto is like kind of like heartbroken in a way when Viserys is like dismissing him.
Mm-hmm.
A part of me does think that there is more than just like selfish motivations for his desire for Aegon to be on the throne. I do think he legitimately thinks Aegon is the better choice because of his gender.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think that there's even a chance that if Rhaenyra was a guy, Otto would not be trying to make Aegon the heir.
Mm-hmm. But
I think I think that he has altruistic reasons, even if his position makes it look selfish because he's the grandfather.
I think it's a little bit of column A and column B. I think both can be true.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely the fact that it's his grandson helps.
So maybe Otto Hightower, like, and it definitely you can kind of. I think it's more so a little bit of ambition, just because he was the one who kind of like insisted on his daughter being in that situation to begin with.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's more so ambition than actually what he wants best for the realm. But it's like 75% ambition, 25% best for the realm.
Yeah. Yeah. Which this scene kind of leaves us with leaves me with a question of, does Alicent love Viserys?
I think she likes him. Like, not like, but just like,
Because between the starfish scenes and the king basically calling Otto out, like saying that Alicent coming to his chamber and helping him through his hard times was like a well-calculated move. Like, I don't know. I feel like this episode really calls into question, like, what Alicent thinks of Viserys.
I don't think Alicent loves Viserys, but I don't think the entire situation is, like, unsufferable and miserable for her. It's not the best of moments, obviously, but I do think there is a bit of emptiness between them on the part of Alicent. I do think Viserys is definitely much more gung-ho about the relationship.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But with that, Viserys says, "You're fired," and then we get the Maester showing up at Rhaenyra's room and offering her
Plan B.
Yeah, some moon tea. Make sure that Ain't nothing growing in that oven.
Uh-huh. And we are not shown the princess taking it.
Indeed.
So
Which,
we're left with that question.
I mean, it makes you wonder if she does have kids. Whose kids are they?
I mean, she's only had sex with one person. So,
But if she is married to Laenor Valerian or anyone else, and they have kids, who knows who that first one belongs to?
and this is, I guess, where the hair issue becomes relevant again.
Right,
If the
I've talked to you a little
princess,
bit about this.
yeah. So because they gave the queen who never was white hair, now if the princess has a child with Cole and that child has brown hair, there is no precedent for that. Like
Uh,
that is just an obvious bastard.
yeah, pretty much none at all.
Um.
And
So yeah,
it probably depends on how many. Like, I don't scientifically know about the accuracies of hair genetics, and I don't trust George R. R. Martin incredibly in the aspects of genetics because of how he handles incest. Like, good God, you're not going to be a fourth generation of incest and look like Amelia Clark. You're going to look like, Stephen Hawkins if he could walk.
possibly. Genetics are weird. Sometimes people get lucky.
But yeah, with because they changed the hair color of the queen who never was, there is little to no basis for the bastards having brown hair. Possible bastards, I
And
mean.
on top of that, so I guess this conversation has kind of confirmed to me that she is going to end up marrying Leonor. But also now the child has to be, you would expect the child to be darker skinned as well.
Yes.
So, I mean, like Cole, I don't think Cole's like he's Dornish,
A little
right?
tan.
But I would expect a child between Cole and the princess to be pretty much white, like pure white.
Yeah. I mean, Cole's a little bit tanned, but Leonor is a bit, he's kind of more of that milk chocolate color, because, Corlys is black, but his mother is pretty pale and white Valyrian, so he's kind of like,
Yeah,
in between. So,
right.
because he's more lighter skinned, the children being lighter skinned would be okay, but it kind of depends on how many. Like, one kid with lighter skin, okay, yeah, sure, it seems like a possibility. But if, like, all their kids are light skinned like that, then
Yeah,
it's a little fishy.
and I don't think that's how skin color genetics always work. I don't think it's just you just mix the color palettes of the two parents and that's the skin color. Like I'm pretty sure there's examples of uh well there's examples of 100% black children or parents with two 100% black parents having kids that can pass as white.
Yeah.
So like skin color is obviously kind of weird, but I feel like the way that George treats genetics in Game of Thrones, genetics are a lot more cut and dry
Well, it's
in
not.
that world.
It's not just that. It's probably along the lines of just the I would be like ignorance on like genetics as far as Westeros is concerned. Because I mean, Eddard Stark was willing to start a war because Robert's bastards, Robert's not. Yeah, no. Jamie's bastards, I should say, all had blonde hair, whereas all Baratheons should like have really dark hair. Obviously, hair doesn't quite work that way, but whether it's different genetics in Westeros or not, I think like the main point is that the ignorance of genetics and how it works in Westeros would result in either way, whether they're legitimate or not, questions and very serious situations.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even if in our modern time, like while we understand that it's a genetic possibility, when it does come up, questions are usually asked and it's somewhat looked into.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're lucky enough to have DNA tests for that stuff, whereas they just gotta, go to war and see who has the bigger army to find out who is right.
Exactly. So yeah, that's probably the thing I was most curious about. If I had to bet, a part of me thinks they're just kind of going to ignore that whole aspect of like, the skin colors and whatnot. I think they might hint at someone else. There might be other aspects, but it's like I said, the Valerians are the one, like aside from the Targaryens, are the one house that you can't really change the race of unless you change both of them.
Yeah. Yeah, but I feel like that would bring up a whole nother can of worms.
I mean, I th- I think I would prefer if they changed like all the Valerians black rather than just some of the Valerians, because at least that's still kind of consistent, in a weird, dumb way. And honestly, given the location of Valyria, it would make sense for the Valyrians to have like kind of darker skin, more akin to the Dornish. But I don't know. I think like having the Targaryens and whatnot actually be like black skinned with purple eyes and white hair, it's just such an interesting combination that it's something that we in the real world don't see unless it's like artificial. A black person dyeing their hair or wearing a wig or contacts or what. All those three like different characteristics makes the Valerians like feel something more than and different than humans.
Well, I mean, but there's reasons for that. Like genetic reasons.
Yeah. But I'm just
and evolutionary reasons. So, like, again, when you're using genetics and stuff like that as plot points, it makes this stuff hard to change around.
yes. But I'm more speaking of like if we could go back in time and George R. R. Martin was like, rewriting the series or whatever, if he like I think maybe it would have been a better idea just to have the Valerians be of a general darker skin to begin with. I think that would save him a lot of headaches. But
How so?
well, for two things, just from like a geographical standpoint, if you look at like the maps of Westeros and Essos, Valeria was further south, and while it's not completely accurate in generic fantasy situations, the further south you go, the blacker people get. Like that's it. North is cold, south is hot. Now, obviously,
Well, that's because most fantasy is based on Europe.
Mhm.
And so if you're in Europe, then that's true, right?
Yeah.
Like you have Europe to the north and then Africa to the south. So as you go down, there you go.
But when you're in Africa, it's different. North is cold and south is cold.
Yeah.
But either ways, given like the general location of Valyria, which is the origins of where the Targaryens and Valerians are from, their geographical location is kind of a bit further south than Dorne, or roughly the same. So it would make sense for the Targaryens and the Valerians to have tanner skin. Like I'm not saying go full black. I think maybe you keep that to like the further islands where the Summer Islands are, which is like the de facto black civilizations and whatnot. But I think you probably could have given the Targaryens and Valerians darker skin in general, more olive, kind of like between Indian and African.
Yeah, I guess I could see that.
From what I understand, like after the first book was published, George R. R. Martin kind of like thought of that again, but he eventually like decided against that because he thought they would look too much like dark elves. To which my thought process was like, yeah, instead of dark elves, now we just got elves with round ears.
Yeah, that's a weird reason to not do it because dark elves are kind of sick.
Yeah, I'm guessing at that point he was just kind of like talking himself out of it because the first book was already published.
Yeah, he's already committed.
Yeah, so I mean, I mean, like with the show, it's different, obviously, but like probably it would be very confusing. Like if in the next book, after describing Daenerys as pale, is like, nah, she black.
Yeah,
She's just like, wow, that sun works fast.
yeah. Which that's another thing. If we're looking at scientific possibilities as to why the Targaryens look the way they do, if they're fire resistant, then maybe they don't absorb UV rays as well by some Targaryen magic, and so their skin wouldn't tan as much.
That's interesting. Huh.
Just a little thought I had.
It's not bad. I mean, I don't know the exact, science stipulations on that. I remember watching a video like, is black Superman stronger than white Superman? Because, would the difference, like, would having a darker skin tone make him able to absorb more sunlight? So,
Well, it would be the opposite. Because that's why people have paler skin, because they live in climates with less sun exposure, so they need to be able to absorb more vitamin D from the sun with lighter skin.
you're right.
So if anything, white Superman would be stronger.
But I always thought, like, kind of like black colors and whatnot, like, were able to, like, conduct heat better. I guess that's different, huh? Conducting heat and getting, like, nutrients from the sun is probably two different things.
Yeah.
Anyways,
so that's
we're getting
okay,
off
yeah.
topic immensely.
We are a little off topic.
But either way, luckily we got off topic at the very end of the episode.
Right? We made it through.
Yeah, we did. So, is there any kind of, like, final things that you'd like to kind of talk and go over, or shall we call it here?
I think we've covered everything I wanted to talk about. I'm really glad we managed to get Black Superman in there. I was worried we weren't going to hit that point.
I know. Good thing we put it in our notes and bullet points.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. Well, with that all squared away, as always, thank you very much, DJ Fella. It's always a pleasure to talk and go over these situations and episodes with you. And to everyone listening, be safe, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.